Meeting of the Personnel and Animal Welfare Committee to order. And first, I'm going to ask that we continue the following items. So if you're here for these, you don't have to stick around. Item number 7. Item number 11 will continue and request a CAO report on item number 11. Continue item number 15. And we'll continue item number 18 and instruct the CAO to prepare a report regarding the feasibility of an ordinance amending the municipal code section 5309 to allow private citizens to provide home care for a found dog or cat that is not wearing a license tag for up to 30 days. So we will continue those 4 items, and we will begin by opening the public hearing for multiple items and public comment. So, who do we start with? Let's see Phyllis. She doesn't show there. All right, so we will begin with multiple item speakers, and that will be Dan and Antonio Ramirez. Which items does Dan signed up for?
Good afternoon. Council members, Daniel Gus from the Stand Foundation. I'm also writing about some of these subjects, 15, 16, 17, 18, which I know is postponed, and 19 for City Watch LA. Part of the reason you still have a lot of these humane problems is for decades, the city has not embraced its critics, of which I'm proud to say that I've been one pretty consistently. You're in item number 15, you're talking about more efficient vehicles. And Mr. Koretz knows better than anybody in city government that, is it only 1 minute that I'm getting here?
You're getting 2 minutes to speak on the items and then 1 minute of public comment.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate it. If we can adjust the clock, I'd appreciate it so I can pace myself. The
clock is off, obviously.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I don't know if we can restart that for his 2 minutes.
Thanks. So the primary concern, the reason why I came down here specifically is we know the problem with lack of air conditioning or lack of consistent air conditioning in the city vehicles. If that isn't primary, I'd like Mr. Koretz, I'd like Mr. Price, I'd like Mr. Hirsch to be directly involved. If it doesn't have air conditioning, if it doesn't have consistent air conditioning, if we don't know what the warranty is, please say no. I came down here for that. If you embraced those of us in rescue as critics of animal services as to why these problems still exist decades later, air conditioning on number 15 should be paramount and right at the front. Regarding animals in homeless shelters, absolutely. This is a major problem of getting homeless people into shelters and dealing with their dedication to their pets. The problem is there's been no outreach to those of us, and I see several faces in the room, those of us who've done hardcore street rescue with homeless people, with dogs running through the streets. Where has the outreach been to the hardcore street rescuers? If it's there, I've not received any. I could have given a lot of feedback. I'd like to know why there hasn't been any outreach. Regarding number 17, Ecomedia, is there a quid pro quo? Are you providing any sort of access to information, or is this just a generous thing that Ecomedia is doing? If it is, for them to underwrite the adoption events, that's wonderful. If not, we need to be very clear. Are they being given anything back for their consideration? I guess 18 has been delayed. I'll deal with that in general. And the pet shop issue. There are these wonderful storefront adoption places throughout the city, and I know issues and quality of care has been an issue. My only concern about number 19 is there somebody on the premises all the time? If there's a fire, if there's an act of vandalism, there needs to be one human being who can get the animals out, who can call 911. That is the primary concern I have with number 19. With general public comment, I'd like to address number 18. It's a great idea, however, What are the specifics with regards to if the owner shows up? What are the mandatory minimum obligations of the caretakers who are doing something very generous and kind for animals? What is their obligation to let the public know, other than just posting it on the wall at East Valley or South LA Shelter? You need to have much better, much clearer obligations to let people know that your dog is in this person's house, contact this person. I haven't seen the specifics about that. It's a great idea, number 18, but what is the obligation? And if you've gone to the shelters, any of the shelters, you'll see a big fat stack of lost or found posters. Well, how is a person who pragmatically, how are they supposed to pragmatically find out who has their animal if it's not in the medical unit, if it's not in the kennels? How are they supposed to know? It needs to be something other than a stack of flyers in the shelter. So more specifics on that, more outreach to the people who have been doing hardcore street rescue for decades. The lack of outreach, the lack of embracing the city's critics is the reason why I write other stories about other city issues. If you embraced your critics more honestly and genuinely, I would have less interest in writing other stories about politicians. Thank you for your time, and thank you for calling me first.
Thank you. Ms. Ramirez?
Thank you.
And you have 2 minutes on general items and 1 minute on your
Thank you
general
very
public
much.
comment.
Let me begin on number 3, please. For the hired goal project, stop unlawfully hiring wetbacks and Chango gangbangers and hire United States military veterans. But you see, Eric Garcetti, who is a pussy, he'll make sure that they don't hire real men like United States military veterans. And number 11, ladies and gentlemen, if you look at Rampart PD and Central Police Department, they are infested with wetbacks in uniform and gangbangers in uniform. That's why we have a high crime rate in that area, because most of those goddamn wetbacks in uniform always side with the wetbacks and gangbangers. And maybe there are blacks and law-abiding Mexican Americans who are refused, including military veterans, who are refused equal protection under the law and due process rights, because these goddamn gangbangers and wetbacks in uniform will always, always, always side with the wetbacks and gangbangers, and they'll always classify them as victims when they're really not. So most of these bastards provoke fights and assaults and all sorts of crimes, including theft. That's an everyday problem. So we should shut down those departments and start pulling out all the wetbacks and gangbangers out of the police departments. That is why I'm here to fight my cases, so I don't have to depend on these wetbacks and gangbangers in uniform, because they have a wonderful network within the LAPD, and that cost Charlie Beck his life. Let's see, number 16. Ladies and gentlemen, number 16. You know, I am homeless, but I'm not going to get a dog. And you know why? Because I don't want to carry a dog with scabies, bed bugs, and fleas, and all that stuff. I'll never understand why these people carry these dogs around when they're homeless and they can't even take care of themselves. What they're doing is they're bringing in more bed bugs, and all forms of bacteria into the space or area where homeless people are at. Most of them can't take care of them. And so you're conducting, or you're bringing in another crime breeding area with these pets. And it's not fair to the pets, because they don't get enough food or they don't get fed properly. And so homeless people should not be allowed to have pets, because they just can't take care of them. And they're causing more of a menace, public safety menace, health and welfare menace. And it's unfair to the rest of the people who are homeless, the rest of people who are not homeless and are catching bed bugs everywhere you are. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's wrong. They should not have pets. These homeless people, I don't know what they're thinking. Clueless idiots. And having said that, I'd like to go to my 1 minute.
You have five or 6 seconds left of your 1 minute.
Okay, well, LAPD, well, again...
Sorry, your time's up.
Okay, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Herman, to be followed by Mr. Spindler.
many minutes, sir? 3 minutes. Very good.
2 minutes plus 1 minute for public comment.
Now, as far as Dr. Brian Pendleton, fuck his reappointment. Then you go into item 6, personnel department report, response, the budget. Fuck the budget. Why do I say that? Because the employees in the future are to lose their so-called retirement. Because the city can't check and balance. Then I go into item 9, Bureau of Street Service report. Fuck the budget once again. That's my recommendation. And fuck Mayor Eric Garcetti. Cocksucker. Then you go into number 11, Los Angeles Police Department. Well, let me tell you something. I just came from the Los Angeles Police Permit Commission. And you know what happened there? We talked about DBAs. And you know what happened to those DBAs? The police department learned what the NWA meaning is. Fuck the police. Then on item number 13, which I support, because, see, in my hood, the ghetto, 13 represents vida, la vida locos. Y cuando estamos locos y perdiendo tiempo.
I think you're off the subject.
No.
The number.
Estoy hablando en inglés. 1:13. 13. El reporte
The
del
actual
público.
number 13 is not on the budget.
Okay, then let me go
You can't
back.
just talk about the number 13 and think you're on the subject.
Fuck the community on that one then. Okay, let me finish now. City attorney.
Wait, just one moment.
On item-
Wait,
I'll
Mr.
hold my
Herman,
time.
Hold your time, please. Mr. Spindler, your distracting gestures are just designed to disrupt the meeting. If you continue, you'll be asked to leave. Go ahead, Mr. Herman.
This is my general public comment. How do you have constructive criticism if everything you pick on is all about allegations and lie? Stop fucking coursing the public in their free speech. First Amendment, 14th Amendment, 4th Amendment, and my Second Amendment, the rights to bear arms. This is my gesture. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just a finger, an index finger, possibly. We don't know. There's no video. But you should video this because I'm talking about my free speech. You should think about the Brown Act, which you don't give a rat's ass about. We should talk about Mr. Dawson's actions when he made a comment about me with a child. I'm not the fucking police, fucking cadets. I'm not Tony Cardenas of Congress, fucking young children at the golf course. So when you want to point a finger at me,
Sorry,
this is general public comment,
Mr.
Paul.
Herman?
Let me finish. You're
Hold this
interrupting me
time.
under the
Hold-
Brown Act.
You can't speak about anything that has nothing to do with the city. Mr. Cardenas, as a member of Congress, has nothing to do with the city. Now,
At one
continue.
point, he was an elected official. DBA, doing business as an asshole. I can't stand Tony. He's a dick, dumb motherfucker, like that other motherfucker
I
from
think
San
you're-
Diego.
I think you're done with
You
your
took
time.
me off topic, so let it go, Peppa Pig. Let it go, Peppa Pig.
You're done.
Let it go, Peppa Pig. Let it go, let it go, let it go. This is how you protest. Fuck the police, NWA.
Continuing to disrupt the meeting. And just for the record, for those few of you who may be here who have never been to a committee meeting or a council meeting, we have
American citizen, I have a right to speak.
we've lost some lawsuits, and so we are forced to allow a certain amount of free speech that seems pretty off the mark. But when you're addressing the committee, it obviously has to have some relevance to the committee. Go on, Mr. Spindler.
Good. Yes, and so coming here from the hood, talk to you niggas about the agenda. Number 19, yo, dogs. You want to keep a number of dogs. I think you should have an unlimited amount of dogs. You can never have enough dogs in the backyard. Everybody trying to mack over your shit, crawling over your goddamn gates and stealing your stuff without your doggies. Your dogs need to be there. You need pit bulls. You need Doberman pinschers. You need Siberian Huskies, yeah. because they need to be in the backyard to control all of the other fools trying to steal your stuff. So I join with Mr. Price and I support 19 with no restrictions on dog permits. Get them to have all the dogs they want. Now, you got more shit on 18 about community members that care for dogs and cats. That's real simple. Well, you just give them some kibble. You just give them a steak. That's all the dog needs is some water and some meat. But you don't want to do that. You want to feed them all of that garbage that you buy in Petco rather than giving them real food for real dogs. Yeah. And then we got all kinds of shit. Let's see here. Retirement system board Sandra Lee. What does Sandra Lee know about pensions? They should be at 7%, but you're paying 7.25% of the loss of $38 million net to the city because this guy, Paul Koretz, Peppa Pig, understands that the city's going bankrupt with pensions, but Miss Lee want to bankrupt the city so that Mr. Price and his wife can buy everything for 5 cents on the dollar in a redevelopment zone. Yeah. So now we're getting into other shit. See, there's not enough time.
You have 1 minute for public comment.
Public comment? Yeah. So as you saw Mr. Herman said, fuck you like this, and that's protected speech, but not here in this city. I take in, I talk, and I'm a puppet. I don't have a middle finger, but if I did, I'd wave it to these motherfuckers over here. And you see 2-member committees. Where's Mitchell Englander? He ain't here at the meeting. He never here. You know why? Because he lives over in Chatsworth, and you can't drive from here to Chatsworth and back in less than 4 hours. Now, why aren't you addressing the traffic, personnel, and welfare? The welfare of the people to get to fucking work and back the fuck home so you can cook your kibbles for your dogs. I think this city is completely awash and fucked up. And that's why it's a good news, though, for current Price. They got the DA blackmailed. They ain't gonna file no charges. Congratulations, yes.
Next speaker under general public comment is Jeffrey Mosner. Mr. Spindler's continuing to make noise and snorts, and please remove him out of the meeting. He's already been removed.
I can't breathe? I'm here in front of it.
You know you're disrupting the meeting as usual.
Because you're a fat pig, and I just snort because I go, I'm breathing. I'm breathing as a fat pig. That's right. Yeah. I mean, the bigamist gets to sit at the meeting. Why does a bigamist get to sit at the meeting? I make a little animal sound.
And just for the record, continuing to disrupt the meeting as he departs.
Good afternoon. I'm Jeffrey Mausner. I'm a volunteer at the West Valley Animal Shelter. The shelters are being inundated with cats. We have to push to get the EIR for the citywide cat program completed as soon as possible. Many cats are being killed because of the TNR injunction. Can I say something on number 18, the found animals policy?
Yes, we'll call you when that item comes up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That's
Actually,
what it's
I'm sorry.
agenda.
Yes, that is continued, so
Can I-
give you the extra time.
Okay,
to do
thank you. All of the volunteers at the West Valley Shelter who I've spoken to about this ordinance support it. This found animals policy will prevent some dogs and cats from having to enter the shelter while being cared for by concerned members of the public. It will free up kennel space for those dogs and cats who are not that lucky to have someone to care for them. In that way, this ordinance will help maintain no-kill. I wrote an article in City Watch responding to Phyllis Doherty's points in opposition to this policy. The article is in the council file. It's filed under public comments dated February 18th, 2018. If you have any questions regarding this policy, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now I'd like to ask that we put items number 18, number 17, and item number 8 on consent, if there's no objection. And then begin with 8 and 17. And then begin with item number 1.
Item number 1, communication from the mayor relative to the reappointment of Dr. Brian Pendleton to the Board of Fire and Police Pension Commissioners for the term ending June 30th, 2023. This matter has also been referred to Budget and Finance Committee.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
If you could tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Brian Pendleton. I am a lifelong from Los Angeles. I've been sitting on the LA Police and Fire Pension Commission for about 3.5 years, and I'm very pleased to be reappointed by the mayor.
And what's your view of the current financial status of the pension system?
I mean, it can always be better. Let's start with that. We're always working hard to ensure that we get solid, strong returns to make sure that our retirees have a healthy pension system. And we also want to make sure that we have healthy returns so that the city doesn't have to write as big a check. And so we're working very hard and diligently to make sure that happens.
And any particular things that you're looking to accomplish in the next term?
Well, I'm really proud to say that diversity has been a good focus of ours. As somebody from the LGBTQ community, I'm proud to say that we added LGBTQ to our specialized manager program, which means that we can invest in LGBTQ new funds, and we did, in fact, invest in a trans-run fund, which I'm very proud of. LAFPP received an award for doing that, first pension in America to do that, and I'm proud that I was able to lead that effort and have a unanimous support of my fellow commissioners. We, as you know, are working diligently to ensure that we have healthcare costs under control while still providing incredible support to our retirees. And like I said, it's all about return for us.
And what do you think about the pension system's current rate of return?
It's better than what we said it would be. About 9%. We're set at 7.25%, so at 9%, it's pretty good. I don't know what it'll be this year. As you can tell, the stock market's been somewhat undulating. We also received a notice for having one of the best-run private equity parts of our portfolio, number 1, by Pension Magazine. I'm really pleased with that as well. When those tend to return, pretty well.
And there's been efforts to reduce the number for our rate of return. It's already been reduced to 7.25%. What do you think about the concept of reducing it further?
That is not before us right now. So I have not seen anything from our actuaries or from staff suggesting that we're going to be lowering ours. And I don't see that in the foreseeable future. Really, that's all market dependent.
Thank you. Mr. Price, anything you want to add?
I just wanted to thank you for your willingness to serve, continuing to serve, and lending your expertise. I'm heartened positively by the diversity that exists in the funds that the city is investing in. I think that's important. I also want to see more, though, greater diversity in the market in money managers. There's an opportunity, I think, to make sure that we're getting good value, good services from a diverse group of professionals, ethnically diverse group of professionals, and I'm just not convinced that we're doing all we can in that area. So I just appreciate your leadership, your willingness to kind of push the ball forward in that respect as well.
I totally hear you, and it's an important effort for us, people of color, LGBTQ community, new investors, people based in Los Angeles, keeping money here. It's all important to us.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for your willingness to continue to serve, and if there's no objections, we will approve the mayor's recommendation on your appointment.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Item number 2.
Item 2, communication from the mayor relative to the appointment of Ms. Sandra Lee to the Los Angeles City Employees Retirement System Board of Administration for the term ending June 30th, 2022. This matter has also been referred to the Budget and Finance Committee.
Well, welcome. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and what you hope to accomplish in this term as a commissioner.
I've lived in Los Angeles for past 35 years, and I currently run my own marketing firm for 20 years. And also, I sit on as a board member for 4 different nonprofit organizations. So I do bring wealth of experience in this area, and I would like to contribute to the city of Los Angeles.
And we appreciate that. Have you looked at Lacer's rate of return policy, and what do you think of where it's set now?
I just got appointed to this position, so I have a lot of catching up to do. But I did see the rate of return, and I think it's they're doing excellent work right now, bringing about close to 10%. So, I think currently they're doing a good job on that.
What do you think of the discussions of reducing the rate of assumed rate of return?
That really depends on the next 10-year market forecast. So we would really have to see all the market situations and make a rational decision based on that.
Okay. Mr. Price, anything you'd like to add?
No, I just want to, again, thank you for your service. I see that you've got some experience in what we call multicultural markets, and I appreciate that. I think that brings a good, a different point of view, different perspective, and so we certainly welcome that. What do you think are some of the major challenges facing the board at this point as we look to the future?
Developing cost-efficient solutions and benefits while keeping everybody happy with the return rate, ROI, I guess, based on investment, return on investment.
And I'm sure you do a great job. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you. We look forward to your service, and we will approve the mayor's recommendation without objection.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 19.
Item 19, City Planning Department report, environmental impact report, negative declaration relative to actions to amend the Los Angeles Municipal Code to facilitate pet adoption by increasing the number of adult dogs permitted to be kept overnight in pet shops in certain commercial zones with development and operation standards, and to include a relief mechanism for shops to vary from the standard or to locate in the remaining commercial zones.
And I'm going to ask that we have public comment speakers go first, and then we'll have the report from the department. If we could begin with Alison Pugash, to be followed by Phyllis Doherty and Jeffrey Mausner.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Alison Pugash. I'm here representing Councilmember Blumenfield's office. It is great to see this piece of legislation so close to adoption. Through the hard work of the planning department and the collaboration between my office and Councilmember Koretz's office, we're finally able to bring our animal friends out of the shadows and back into our commercial corridors. This issue has for a long time needed to be addressed. It came to our office's attention with Addie Gill's Rock and Rescue, which was threatened with closure and needed a variance to continue to exist. The council member supported that variance and to address that singular site, and he was proud to do so, but it was evidence that a holistic fix was needed. This is that fix, and we are proud to support this legislation and excited at the prospect of creating a new mechanism for us to create more visible options for pet adoption centers and to help support and enliven our ever-changing commercial boulevards.
Thank you very much. Ms. Doherty, to be followed by Jeffrey Mausner.
Good afternoon. I want to say just very briefly that I had asked to speak on item 18 and 19. I would have requested public comment if I knew that 18 was going to not have been heard. So I will submit something to you in writing.
Well, I'll let you do your public comment
okay, thank you.
After this item on the other.
On item 19, we have opposed that. We won a lawsuit against it because this will destroy businesses, the value of homes, communities, the quality of life, and the public safety. We do not need this. If we are no-kill, why do we need to be creating animal shelters in private residence areas? The two dogs that were brought in as rescues from Korea, and this does not forbid bringing in animals from everywhere. There's nothing in this that restricts it to Los Angeles animals or Los Angeles rescues. Those 2 dogs that brought in canine influenza, there have now been 300 cases reported in this area as a result. That's
Thank you, Ms. Doherty. Mr. Mausner?
Yes, there's a community impact statement. Should I speak on that first?
Yes.
Okay, I won't need 5 minutes, but I might need 3 or so. Okay. Excuse me. I'm Jeffrey Mausner. I'm a board member and the second vice president of the Tarzana Neighborhood Council. I'm chair of its Animal Welfare Committee. I'm also a volunteer at the city's West Valley Animal Shelter in Chatsworth. The Tarzana Neighborhood Council passed a community impact statement in support of this file 17-0079. The community impact statement supports allowing animal rescues to operate in commercial zones in order to increase animal adoptions and save the lives of animals. Furthermore, all of the volunteers at the West Valley Shelter, who I have spoken to about this, support this ordinance. I was the appellant in the case involving Rock and Rescue, the rescue that was almost closed down by the city because it is in a commercial zone and which precipitated this new ordinance. I filed that appeal because, as a volunteer at the West Valley Shelter, I was personally aware of dogs and cats who were going to be killed at the shelter who were saved by Rock and Rescue. It would have been a tragedy for many dogs and cats if Rock and Rescue had been shut down. Thousands of people signed petitions in support of Rock and Rescue remaining open in a commercial zone, and over 100 people came to support Rock and Rescue at the South Valley Area Planning Commission hearing. So I know there is a great deal of support for allowing rescues to operate in commercial zones. Councilman Koretz, I know you've received letters stating that this ordinance will lead to animal hoarding and all sorts of terrible conditions for animals at those rescues. The exact opposite is true. People are less likely to do hoarding in a commercial zone where everything is visible and open to the public than in an industrial zone or residential zone. All of the conditions in these rescues in commercial zones are going to be much more open to scrutiny than a rescue hidden away in an industrial zone. So I think that argument against this ordinance is completely wrong. While there may be issues regarding enforcement of the puppy mill ban and issues regarding treatment and conditions of dogs in rescues, opposing this humane bill is not the way to deal with those issues. Thank you to the City Council, to you, Councilman Koretz, Councilman Blumenfield, and Andrew Pennington, Ali Pugash, John Popich, Svetlana Pravina, and Jim Bickhart for their work on this important ordinance and helping to save the lives of animals. Thank you.
Thank you. Elizabeth Orrick, to be followed by Vince Wong, and those are our last speakers on this item.
Good afternoon. My name is Elizabeth Orrick. I'm the National Manager of Puppy Mill Initiatives for Best Friends Animal Society, and we are in full support of this ordinance. We were very involved in the passage of the original pet sales ordinance, and one of our big concerns then and now is making sure that adoption model pet stores in the city could not only do business, but could thrive. In order to fully realize the original intent of the ordinance, which is to reduce the burden on our shelters and help adoptable animals find homes. And to do that, pet stores can't be relegated to out-of-the-way commercial zones. They need to be easily accessible to the public, as traditional pet stores that sell commercially bred pets have always been. So we believe that this ordinance accomplishes that reasonably and effectively, and that it will be a very good thing for the city and for countless companion animals and potential pet adopters who will benefit from this ordinance. So on behalf of Best Friends and our thousands and thousands of Los Angeles members, thank you for bringing this forward. We really appreciate the support.
Thank you. Vince Wong?
Good afternoon, council members. Thank you very much for the opportunity to provide public comment on this very important item. My name is Vince Wong, Director of Policy and Civic Engagement for Michelson Found Animals Foundation. Echoing Elizabeth as well, this is a great opportunity for us to think about pet adoption in a different way. We actually operate Adopt and Shop, which are humane pet retail adoption centers upon which this ordinance is primarily modeled after, along with many other organizations and humane pet retail adoption centers throughout Southern California. We actually operate in cities outside of Los Angeles, partially because of the lack of opportunity to open up from a zoning perspective. This is a great way to remedy that, a great way for Los Angeles to continue its operations as a humane city, thinking about the animal welfare and thinking about companion animals and that within our communities. Appreciate this and very much look forward to being able to open up as well in Los Angeles.
Thank you. And now if you'd like to present on behalf of the department.
Good afternoon. I'm Phyllis Nathanson with the Planning Department. And to facilitate pet adoptions, the Planning Department has drafted an ordinance that would increase the number of adult dogs that pet shops or pet adoption centers would be allowed to keep overnight. Currently, pet shops can operate in commercial zones, but not if they keep 4 or more dogs overnight. Establishments that keep 4 or more adult dogs overnight are regulated as if they were kennels, and kennels are only allowed in industrial zones. Our ordinance modifies the regulations so that pet shops keeping 4 or more adult dogs overnight can operate in certain commercial zones, which are the C2, C4, C5, and CM zones, but only if they comply with a set of standards. And these standards were crafted with the help of Department of Building and Safety and Department of Animal Services to ensure that the pet shops operate in a manner that is appropriate to commercial setting. Generally, the ordinance prohibits shops from breeding or commercial boarding. It limits the number of dogs and cats based on the size of the shop. It requires that all activities are conducted indoors, and it includes dog walking restrictions, and it limits noise and odor. And the ordinance also provides an avenue for pet shops that wish to vary from the standards and for pet shops that would like to operate in more restrictive commercial zones, such as the CR, C1, and C1.5 zones. That would be reviewed on a case-by-case basis and could be approved by a zoning administrator.
And to what extent can the Department of Animal Services help participate in this?
Well, they've participated in designing the limitations that we have in the ordinance so far, and there's some of the limitations actually rely on the Department of Animal Services to review, such as dog walking routes, and if noise and odor becomes a problem, the applicant could be required to provide filtration or noise abatement.
And who does the enforcement of this? How's that going to work?
So some of the standards are building and safety type standards, and those would be enforced by building and safety, and some are more operational, and those would be enforced by the Department of Animal Services.
Great. Mr. Price, any comments?
No, I think these are reasonable standards. The operational standards seem to be fair, and it sounds like they've been reached after some consensus with industry and the office. And so I'm prepared to support the recommendation.
And needless to say, I'm very excited to see this move forward. I appreciate Mr. Blumenfield's active support of this, and the community, neighborhood councils, animal organizations. I think the idea that this will be disruptive to the community, I think, is completely and totally off base, and I think it will result in many more adoptions of dogs and cats and continue to move us towards the goal of no kill, which is not something where you just set foot at your goal for a second and then you retreat from it. This is a difficult area to not only achieve but to maintain, and this will be a great help to us. So thank you for bringing this to us and all the good work in the community and the department. And if there's no objection, we will approve this item. So thank you. And we will approve the planning department's report. Item number 3.
30?
3.
3. Item number 3, adopted budget recommendation relative to instructing the CAO to report in regard to a uniform methodology for calculating the number of employees hired toward the 5,000 hire goal established in 2015.
And I don't know who's going to present on this.
Marita Aspen with the CAO's office. As you know, in December of 2015, the City of Los Angeles entered into a letter of agreement with the Coalition of Los Angeles City Unions, which stated that the city had a goal of hiring 5,000 civilian employees by the end of fiscal year 2017-2018. And a recent budget recommendation asked us to come up with a standard methodology for calculating that 5,000 number. Basically, what we've done is we went through the city's payroll system and calculated how many folks had an original hire date that was after January 1st of 2016. And as the report specifies, we have hired over 9,500 employees since that time. Although some of them have since separated from city service, we still have 7,845 that are active in the city. So we believe we have met that goal of 5,000. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Yeah, no, I think there was certainly a lack of clarity of what that 5,000 commitment meant. When this was approved, my understanding was that it was 5,000 new positions that would provide additional service levels. And it seems as if we've decided that it's just hiring people. And so 5,000 people leave, you're replaced with 5,000 new people. You've achieved your goal when, in fact, you wouldn't have hired an additional new person towards that 5,000. So I'm wondering if we have a calculation of how many new people have been hired during this period that provide additional service, and if we have any clarity on which that was agreed to and what management thinks and what the coalition thinks in terms of both sides of that negotiation. Certainly I thought it was 5,000 service additions, and I think many of the council members, if not all of us, thought the same thing.
That was sort of my understanding at the time, that there'd be
Well, that was it was clear in the city council report that transmitted all of the MOUs for the coalition. It specifically stated that it was not net new positions, that it was hiring 5,000 employees, and that was clear during the negotiation process. I was part of that team that was negotiating that, and I know that some folks have said that it was net new, but that was never the intention. It was supposed to be 5,000 new hires after that specific date.
Well, I would think that would almost be a purposeless negotiation, because I think we could have reached 5,000 with our eyes closed. As it's noted, we did 9,500. It wasn't to meet that goal. It was just largely just standard hiring to attrition.
Well, certainly not all of it was hiring to attrition. There are
Right.
some new positions that have been added by the city council.
Right. So certainly one thing I would ask is a report back on how many are actually net new service providing positions since that time, so we can see what we all thought we were getting. If it was hidden in a report somewhere, if somebody could come back with that information, that would be that would be valuable as well.
Well, I would not say that it was hidden in a report. It was in the council transmittal, and we can certainly bring you a copy of that.
Okay. Ms. Goldberg, do you have something you'd like to add
Just
to
that
this?
the name of the program is Workforce and Service Restoration. That does not mean, in our view, at least those of us who have been working for 2 years on targeted local hiring, that what we were trying to do is just hire a bunch of people. We were trying to return, the MOU says the goal is to return us to service levels that were available prior to the Great Recession. And that in order to do that, you need to do more than just replace retiring and promoting people. You need to add more people because the reason services were cut was they were cut because you didn't fill empty positions. And so I don't remember the language, so I'm hearing that was there. When I was asked to come on to work on this, it was transmitted to me that the goal of this here's item number 4. The coalition and city agree that in order to achieve the hiring goal of 5,000 new civilian employees, the city will need to use trainee-level positions and programs to create alternate pathways to civil service careers. Now, it sounds to me when you say 5,000 new civilian employees that you're talking about adding to the existing workforce by 5,000 people so that you can restore service. You can't restore service by having the same number of people that you had when the Great Recession went on. That doesn't restore any service. Service was cut because we left most of those positions vacant during that period of time. They weren't filled. So now if you fill them, you're restoring positions and so forth. We disagree respectfully with that interpretation because otherwise, how is it service restoration? How do you restore service if you have the same number of people as you had during the Great Recession?
And was that discussion focused on full-time positions?
Yes.
I respectfully disagree with the Honorable Ms. Goldberg, but as someone who was in the room when this language was being negotiated, if you look at the actual language in the agreement, it says a goal of hiring 5,000 civilian employees. If we meant full-time, it would have said full-time. If we meant net new, it would have said net new. It does not. It says the goal of hiring 5,000 civilian employees.
Then how do you restore service?
Well, again, we can't restore service unless the council approves the additional positions in the budget. We can only hire
obviously we weren't in on the actual discussions, but it seems obvious what the goal was. So I can't imagine there was a lot of discussion about how do we just hire 5,000 people? Because it's obvious that's pretty much business as usual, especially in an environment where we have an aging population. A lot of people are going to retire, and there'll have to be a lot of replacements. So we could have done that without an agreement. And I don't think that was the goal that was discussed, was just to rehire the people we were losing. But again, I wasn't there, so I can't assume that.
Right. We will certainly try to come up with a number that will give you an indication of how many net new positions we have hired.
That will be very useful.
And, I mean, normally I don't really discuss what goes on in negotiations, but I would suggest that if there is another negotiation with the coalition, that at a minimum this should be added back in and tightened up and be impossible to miss, that we want to hit a number that is whatever we've hired new during this period, plus whatever we're short of the 5,000, and we still want to get there. I think it's very clear that the council and the coalition wanted to achieve that goal. So if somehow it got lost in translation, I think it should be unlost, and hopefully we can find a way to do that. But in the meantime, I'd love to have a number of how far we've gotten towards that goal in terms of net new hires, both part-time and full-time.
And some idea where they are, where those employees are, what departments.
That may be a little harder to achieve, sir, just because we don't have a robust position control system, but we will certainly work with the personnel department to try to answer your questions.
Thank you.
And obviously, it impacts targeted local hire and our efforts there, because had we hired 5,000 new people, clearly a lot of the entry-level positions that we haven't yet hired would be possibly done through targeted local hire.
My first meeting was on August 10th, 2015, and I was told that I was supposed to work on a letter of agreement implementing it for service and workforce restoration. Now, you cannot talk about service restoration if you have the same number of employees that you had when you lost the service.
And presumably not workforce restoration
In
either if
addition to
you're just
which,
maintaining
on
it.
October the 1st, 2015, then CAO Miguel Santana said that the idea was to use the hiring to serve underserved communities and to establish the next generation of city employees. Okay, the next generation of city employees implies that we're doing more than simply replacing retiring people or promotions. I mean,
To be honest with you, that wording, it doesn't strike me as clear.
Okay.
That could easily just be the next replacement generation. The rest of it, I think, is pretty clear.
Well, in any case, the information will be very useful to us whether or not we agree on what the number was. But we've been, since literally 2015, we have been requesting information to find out how many net new employees have actually been hired. Whether that was the goal or not, we can fight about later, but that's still an important piece of information to us in the targeted local hiring group, and I assume it is to you as well.
And I'm going to ask that we hold this item in committee and request that bit of information and move on from there.
Mr. Kretz, could I add something?
Sure.
Molly Rhodes, SEIU 721. I also was at the bargaining table and
yes, of course.
can confirm everything that Ms. Goldberg said. It was the intent. It was our intent at the table. I wanted to flag that we appreciated that you brought this issue back to pause in the budget instruction. And when I read the budget instruction, it was for the CAO to confer with us. And so we haven't had a conversation with Marita about this recently. We are in bargaining. We were in bargaining this morning on the side letters, and so it is a topic.
Well, I would hope once we have more information that both sides continue that dialogue.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item number 4.
Item 4, adopted budget recommendation relative to instructing the CEO to report in regard to the feasibility of expanding the Coalition for Los Angeles City Unions and Local 501 Apprenticeship Program to additional departments, with said report to include any budgetary changes that would be required to maximize utilization of the apprenticeship program.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, Paula Day, CAO, Employee Relations Division.
And I wonder if you could tell us just a little bit about the program.
Yes. The Local 501 Apprenticeship
Can you
Program.
pull up a little bit?
Yes. The Local 501 Apprenticeship Program is designed to employ a single classification to hire employees, to hire apprentices who will work over a span of 4 years with classroom training and on-the-job training. So the classroom training would be in the evenings, and the on-the-job training would occur during the day under the supervision of a senior or a chief building operating engineer. And after 4 years of receiving this training and passing classes, the individual would be transitioned into a civil service building operating engineer classification with the city. So the 4-year period would be a substitute or an alternative pathway to civil service.
And how far along is the Building Trades Apprenticeship Program?
So I've been working very closely with Gavin Kuhn of the International Union of Operating Engineers. We have crafted the entire skeleton of the program. I'm currently working with the Personnel Department to finalize the onboarding process to ensure that it complies with civil service rules and make sure that the Personnel Department is satisfied that the program is appropriate. But the agreement is essentially completed. Beyond that, and consulting with a few more departments that are interested in hiring these apprentices.
And this will create a pathway to civil service employment.
Correct. An alternative pathway, yes.
Mr. Price, anything to add?
Thank you. No, it sounds like an exciting program. They'll be hired at the end of this 4-year training period.
They'll be hired as civil service.
As civil service.
They'll transition to.
And then how many of these skilled individuals do we hope to create or identify or select?
The agreement that I'm working with the union with and allows for a maximum of 30 individuals citywide. So the program, to answer one of the questions from the committee, it will be citywide in those departments that employ the class of building operating engineer. 30, but in reading the literature from the apprenticeship program that is established generally in the state, they hire approximately 10 to 15 individuals on average. So we allowed some leeway. And we're trying to ensure that the city has maximum flexibility. We may come back and see if the program is flourishing. We may increase that or make any other modifications.
But we won't see any employment until
we
down the road a piece.
Until down the road. So we anticipate actually implementing this in the fall of this year because we're that close to being done. But it would take, we'll see someone hired in the apprenticeship program, maybe early 2019 or hopefully in the fall of 2018. But it would take 4 years before they're in the civil service class of building operating engineer.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So if there's no objection, we will note and file the CAO's report. And
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we still have one speaker for public comment. Ms. Doherty, you'll have 1 minute under general public comment.
Good afternoon. I want to take speak on item 18 because this involves several things. It involves the possibility of theft. It is an issue of title. It decreases revenue, and it also can lead to a great deal of liability, both for the owner of the animal. If someone takes in an animal, first of all, we pay for animal shelter so that we can find our animals quickly. If someone takes us in, they're actually depriving the public of their property. It's the same as if you leave your car with the keys in it and I take it in and I say, okay, after 30 days, I can sell this to somebody else. You can't. There is no transfer of title automatically in 30 days, and all it does is deprive the person of being able to find their pet. As someone pointed out, there is no way to tell through a stack of flyers whether someone has your pet. Also, the owner keeps liability. If my animal is lost and you have it, I still have liability. I have not had the opportunity to retrieve it.
Thank you. And as we continue this item, I think liability issues are one of the things that we'll ask to be reviewed before it comes back to us. Item number 5 and item number 12, I think we can combine. So if we could hear both those items.
Item number 5, CAO report in response to adopted budget resolution relative to vacancy reporting with the Pay SR position control module. And item 12 is an Information Technology Oversight Committee report in response to adopted budget motion relative to the Human Resources and Payroll Project and related matters.
And just for the record, Mr. Price needs to attend another engagement, and so we will continue this as a meeting of the chair. I forget exactly what you call that, but
Anything stemming out of this will be a communication for the chair.
yes, this will be a communication of the chair meeting from here on in.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Leah from the CAO's office. I'm Fatima DeMesa with the Personnel Department.
Ted Ross, General Manager with ITA, regarding item 12.
So on item number 5, the city has historically not had a centralized position control system. And so what the Personnel Department in collaboration with ITA had developed a position control module within the PACER system, which has the capacity to report on the authorized number of positions along with how those positions are currently being filled. In 2016, Personnel launched this module for 4 departments, and in 2017, they've expanded the use of this module to the 23 consolidated departments, and at the end of 2017, they've reached out to all of the 42 city departments to offer use of this position control module. To date, personnel reports that 20 departments are actively using this module. 16 departments are in the process of moving forward with testing, training, and data conversion process. 4 departments have yet to be assessed, and 2 departments have opted not to use the module. So in order to use this position control module to do the vacancy reporting that Council had requested, we believe that the following steps are necessary. City departments have to be required to use this position control module. Number 2 is that departments, along with elected offices, have to continually maintain the information in the position control module. And the third that we request is that the CAO must be able to verify that the position authorities that are reported in this module are accurate. And so for that reason, our office recommends that the City Council instruct all city departments to use the position control module, take all the necessary actions as directed by the Personnel Department and the CAO to update the data on an ongoing basis. We're requesting that all elected city offices use the PCM as well and update the data and on an ongoing basis, and instruct the third thing is that to instruct the CAO and personnel to report back to your office within 90 days with an actual vacancy report for each city department that has accurate and up-to-date information, and also to provide a status for city departments that have and their progress towards being able to accurately report their vacancy.
And wonder if you could speak to some of the problems with the system that precedes this. I know it's been considered to be overly complex, somewhat fragile. So what are some of the reasons why we're moving forward with this?
Certainly. So Ted Ross, General Manager with IT, I can certainly speak to that. What you're really seeing are us running parallel projects. On one side, we're working to build out position control in our existing situation. We wholeheartedly agree with the approach that personnel's been taking, and we've been implementing that. And it helps lay that foundation for the system replacement that you're speaking of. So we have a report submitted in for this HR payroll system. We appreciate the opportunity before this committee to discuss the RFP and also to address some of the budget questions that were raised at budget and finance hearings. To your point, the current PACER system has become extremely complex. It's millions of lines of code. It is custom-built application built essentially by one person. And when you have an organization our size, the legacy aspects of it, its inability to be able to migrate and upgrade, have caused a lot of issues for us. So we are initiating an RFP, and that's what's in item 12 before the committee. We solicited heavily across departments, personnel, department controller's office, and 4 departments. We're very engaged. We've conducted 40 workshops with focus groups, 700 attendees, and we're at the point now for the release of the RFP. So to your point, the existing PACER system has been extremely difficult to support and maintain, has very limited life going forward. And so while we're building out and establishing the framework for things like position control, et cetera, it'll make it easy for the implementation of the new system coming down the pipeline.
And how many of the functional requirements does PACER currently have, and how much of that requires vendor customization?
Yeah, that's a great question. By us conducting 40 workshops, one thing I'm very proud to say, and I know Bill Weeks from Personnel, I don't want to put words in his mouth, and he can correct me if I'm wrong. One of the strengths of this project around the HR payroll has been department participation and engagement. So the ability to understand what departments are doing, what they're using the current PACER system for, and how they're managing their HR and their payroll needs. One of the great benefits of these 40 workshops has been identifying 1,600 different requirements for what the city has. When it comes to the implementation of a new system, that's the strength of our RFP. The RFP states, of the requirements that we're publishing to you, you as a vendor tell us what can you handle out of the box, right, with configuration, and what would you require customization to do. And the way we've structured our RFP is that it's going to provide additional benefit to those who can perform it out of the box as opposed to those who would require expensive one-off customization to meet those requirements. And in so doing that, it helps reduce the cost. It helps make sure that we have an easier to maintain a support system. Payroll is not something you should have to replace every several years. It's something that you can install and run faithfully for a very long time, and it keeps up with the needs of our organization. So in many ways, our RFP will be taking that into account.
And how much do we expect in terms of beyond just the things we need, but the things we should have, the things we'd like to have? Are we going to get every feature that would be of value to the city in this, or just some of them, and will we be able to add more later that gets us to the most efficient use of the system?
Mr. Chair, you asked the right questions. I think for right now, certainly there's a lot of things the city wants, many, many things the city wants, but there's only so many things the city can afford. So our approach to this is to replace the PACER system. So it's to meet the existing requirements, and we'll get some nice to haves, want to haves in addition to that. We see that whenever we replace an old legacy system with a new system, we get a lot of the things out of the box that we weren't even necessarily asking for. So we'll definitely get a replacement of what we have today. We'll get some additional capabilities and components. And then we'll have a platform. Part of what the RFP has is it describes future phase requirements. And so the vendors will be showing their ability to handle some of those future phase capabilities that we as a city know what we want. That will make us a better to manage our staff, better develop and recruit and retain, do all the nice things that an organization with over 40,000 employees should have. So it gives us that platform to build on it. And to your point before, the focus is around configuring and off-the-shelf functionality as opposed to expensive customization.
And how do we think the departments are doing that are using the system, and what steps do we need to take to compel everybody to use the system, which is ultimately where we want to be?
So let's talk about position control. So I'll ask the ladies to speak to that.
With respect to the departments that are currently using it, I think there are certain challenges. Challenges are a lot of it is still manual. But at least there is a system there now for them to use, whereas when we did our assessments, departments had different spreadsheets and just different access databases that they built in-house. So now this is a centralized system. The instructions that we're requesting in the report will certainly help us to move forward.
Now, when you say things are still manual, one of the things I've been encouraging us to get at for years, and I assume we do, but what you just said makes me a little nervous. Ideally, by taking this step and going from paper files, for instance, so instead, if you have 7 paper files, instead of having 7 clerks file 7 forms, ideally, if it's not done quote manually, it's done once and it populates all the areas. So I assume when you say manually, I hope you're not saying that we're still having to do that.
Well, let me clarify myself with the manual part of it. The manual part of it is the plan, the strategy that the department has, that the management has. So when they, when a department hires someone, a human knows what position, what division, what function that employee should be going into. So, for example, there could be 5 clerk positions that are vacant. When we hire someone, it would be a human, that's the manual part of it, that would know which vacancy that person is actually going to. So that's the manual part of it. However, there is a feature that whereby when an employee is brought on to added onto PACER to put them on payroll, that employee's personal information, demographics, all that will be sent over to the PACER position control module directly. So it there's already a link. It just needs the human I guess verification.
So in regards to item 5, position control gets us a good deal of the way, and it pre-populates information, et cetera. And with item 12 related to the new HRP system, I think we hold a lot of promise for even automating it even further.
Okay, and before this gets to council, can you provide us with the 20 departments that are doing this, and I know a certain number have requested to move forward with testing and training and data conversion. So if you could give us all that information. And which departments, were there departments that opted actively not to use PCM, and did they provide reasons for it, or is it more passive and they just haven't done it?
I think it's still voluntary at this time, and for that reason, I think when departments still have an existing system, they've chosen not to have to do double entry of having to use their system and this current one. And so with your adoption of this report, we hope that this will compel them to say, okay, now we have to switch over to using the position control system.
It's perfect preparation for the new HR payroll system because that's focused at being a citywide system. So the work that's being done with the position control module and Pacer is a perfect setup for a new system.
And it might be helpful to list a reason for some of the vacancies under position authorities and the length of time positions have been vacant. Will this system be able to provide that kind of information?
Yeah, the system is on a go-forward basis at this point, so some of the information would be there as far as length of the vacancy. As far as reasons go, there is an area where notes could be indicated, but I think we'll have to look into developing something that would be more more consistent as far as the reasoning for the vacancy. Otherwise, writing a report would make it difficult.
Right. So I assume it wouldn't be anything close to a first step that you would take on, but just one thing you should be thinking about as a possibility as this moves forward. How are we doing in terms of position control? Will this initially provide every function that we're looking to fulfill, or are there other things that will have to be done as we go forward?
Currently, we are working on the basics. That's probably the only way I can put it at this point. Enough information to allow the departments to be able to use it. We do have departments, when we meet with them, who would like, it's kind of like what you're saying with the must-haves, nice-to-haves, should-haves. We are working on the must-haves right now to just have this, the basic position information in there. But there are certain features that we're hoping will be coming, such as org charts and being able to tie them to budget functions.
Well, this sounds like an exciting program. I'm happy to see this moving forward after being discussed for a lengthy period of time over the years. And so I will have us approve the CAO recommendations and in number 5 and note and file the report in number 12. And thank you all for your presentations.
Excellent.
Item number 6.
Item 6, Personnel Department report in response to adopted budget recommendation relative to the feasibility of using 120-day returns to work to mentor and train targeted local hire employees.
Good afternoon. Vince Cordero, Personnel Department. I'm also joined with
Melissa Fleming with the CAO.
So during the budget hearings for fiscal year 18-19, the Personnel Department and the CAO were asked to report upon the feasibility of using retiree employment to mentor and train target local hire employees. The Target Local Hire program utilizes a 6-month on-the-job training period to train employees to perform at the level of the entry-level civil service classification they will eventually transition into. During the on-the-job training period, TLH candidates will generally require additional guidance and training than if the department hired directly from the regular civil service eligible list. Departments may utilize 120-day return to work retirees to train and mentor TLH candidates. Authority to employ retirees for the 120-day period to address certain business needs is provided for in the city's charter section 1164. Employment by the city of a retired member of the system, paragraph B. Please note that the ability to use retirees hired through the 120-day process to train and mentor TLH applicants will be subject to availability of retired city staff with the appropriate expertise and the retirees' willingness to return to work. If qualified retired staff are available, departments wishing to hire retirees for the 120-day return to work periods to train and mentor. Again, TLH candidates may request to do so now at any time. The departments may do so at any time. Requests should include consideration of the following points. Availability of department funds. Approval process needs to be completed and approved by the mayor. This includes various requirements that need to be met. Position authority. So departments must have a vacant position authority available to employ the 120-day return. If a department does not have a vacant regular or resolution authority position available, the department can submit a request for substitute position authority to the CAO in accordance with Section 2 of the Department Personnel Ordinance. There's some limitations of the 120-day appointment per fiscal year, so the consideration should be given to that under the charter. Departments will need to be strategic in the use of retirees throughout the year in order to ensure this time limit for days worked is not exceeded. In addition, while use of retirees hired through the 120-day return to work process may be beneficial to help and train mentor TLH candidates, due to the temporary nature of the 120-day employment, it would be inappropriate for a 120-day retiree to act as a supervisor of the TLH candidate. Each department would need to assess the need and identify the most appropriate use of the retiree to support the TLH hires. So again, to recap, the 120-day return to work retiree option may be beneficial option for departments that need assistance in developing TLH candidates. And we'll take any questions you may have. Thank you.
Have any departments requested retirees for this purpose?
Not from our perspective, but maybe see.
Yeah, I haven't seen any specific requests for this intent.
Yeah, and I think that's why this was raised during the budget process, because I don't know if there's an awareness of that possibility within the city family, but I agree. I wouldn't focus on our being reliant upon it, because it's obviously a short-term position, but we also have a lot of expertise in the hands of our retirees. So certainly some of them could be brought back for some training and mentoring. Obviously, we wouldn't expect to have them supervised because they'd be there for a while and then drop out in the middle. But I think there's certainly some value there. So I'd certainly encourage us to put that word out that such a possibility exists, because I think otherwise it won't really occur to anybody. And so, and obviously, I think it's a good opportunity to help move targeted local hire forward a little more easily. So I would just encourage that as a direction from the committee. And otherwise, we will note and file the report, and thank you for it.
Thank you.
And item number 9.
Item number 9, Bureau of Street Services report in response to adopted budget recommendation relative to instructing the Bureau of Street Services to report in regard to recommendations, changes, or additions to the targeted local hire program classifications in order to fill sidewalk repair crews.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Stephanie Clements, Bureau of Street Services. As was mentioned, we were asked to identify additional classifications we could add to the targeted local hire program, specifically for our sidewalk crews. In the 18-19 budget, we were authorized for 58 additional positions for sidewalk crews. Out of those 58 positions, we have 8 maintenance and construction helpers. So that could be one classification if you're looking to add classifications to TLH that you may want to consider. That said, with the current classifications, we can hire maintenance laborers. So we are planning to hire maintenance laborers in lieu of maintenance and construction helpers. So the current classifications in the TLH program already provide us that opportunity to do so.
And so the maintenance laborers could be hired as that, and they could work their way up to
Exactly.
maintenance and construction helpers.
Correct, over time, yeah. I mean, the thing is, they would still need to take the actual maintenance and construction helper test, but they can be considered maintenance laborers in lieu of maintenance and construction helpers. In addition to that, there are 2 senior admin clerks included in the 58 positions. We'll be able to hire office trainees through TLH.
Now, I know there are classifications, I think, that are listed that would require an associate or bachelor's degree.
Yeah, you know, at the end of the report, we did throw in accounting clerk or management assistant, if those are classifications that you want to consider. But correct, those take you know, either an A degree or a college degree to be eligible. But maybe that could be one of the requirements of a enhanced TLH program, that there'd be a separate list for folks who have degrees. It's just a suggestion. But we understand there's issues with adding those classifications that do require degrees.
Right. So that's what I was thinking too. That if we do that, it would have to be a modification of the program.
Right. Correct.
And
a separate list just with folks that have degrees.
And I think we occasionally have tripped over people that have qualifications beyond entry level.
Oh, definitely.
Like
a lot of the folks that are on the office trainee referral list, a lot of them have college degrees. Some have master's degrees. So, yes, they're already included in that, but they can only be hired at this point as an office trainee and then move up from there.
So I guess we should take a look at that, and I would encourage your department and others to look at whether there should be a separate process for folks with degrees that can also access targeted local hire in a way that we can't now. Well, thank you, and we will otherwise note and file this report with that encouragement. Item number 10.
Item 10, CAO report relative to authorization to expend funds, recognize increased revenues and add position authority and amend contract number C-129255 with the Metro to provide transit law enforcement services.
Welcome.
June 13th, 2018, Public Safety Committee approved this matter. It's also been referred to Budget and Finance.
Good afternoon, Commander Ann Clark, Transit Services Bureau.
Tyler Munhall, CAO.
I wonder if you could give us a little detail on the service enhancements and changes that are proposed in the contract amendment.
Sure. We entered into this contract with MTA, as you know, July 1 of last year. There were anticipated add-ons for year 2. That was 27 positions, which we're in the process of filling right now. But as with all things new, there are growing pains. And in the growing pains, we realized there are some things we really need that we didn't factor in when we built this. So among those, a HOPE team component of 1 sergeant and 10 officers. We did not negotiate for bomb canine when we entered into this contract because of the challenges of which agency had the TSA authorities. And at the time the sheriffs had the authorities, we kind of had to wait for some positions to attrit out. It didn't seem worth negotiating over when it was so tenuous, and we just wanted to get this thing rolling. So now that we're going into year 2, we're ready to staff, due to attrition on the Sheriff's Department part, 1 supervisor for canine officers. We hope that those officers will be sent to training in the coming month, and that's a long-term training. It'll probably take them a year to get certified. And then in addition to that, because of the way our payroll system is set up, we're not designed for processing all the overtime slips a day that Transit Services Division creates, and that's with officers coming from every part and every corner of the city. Inevitably, there are challenges with that. And so we realized we needed a significant addition to our civilian component, which would be a billing and auditing unit, so that we could handle things on time and, more importantly, bill MTA on time. So really that's the thrust of what we're asking for. In addition, it doesn't surpass the existing $369 million of the 5-year contract. MTA expects they'll have to go back to their board at some time in year probably 4 to ask for more money, but right now there's no loss to us. It's all benefit.
And I know there's administrative clerk positions in this. Are we looking at the possibility of using targeted local hire to fill those?
Actually, we're looking at them by any means we can get them. We're struggling right now to fill existing vacancies in our command, and whatever we need to do, certification lists, what have you, we'll do it.
Well, we're certainly not short of targeted local hire applicants, so I would encourage you to look at that if possible.
Yes.
Why is the termination for convenience or default period extended from 6 months to 12 months?
That was at the request of Councilmember Englander. I can tell you that when we were negotiating on this contract, initially it was 1 year. And as we all sat at the table as the city family, we thought if we had to downsize this, given that it's not a huge footprint of officers and personnel, it's not 400 people, it's going to hover around 100 and something, that we felt we could reabsorb all those people into the organization in 6 months. However, Mr. Englander wanted the assurances of the 1 year, and so MTA was happy to grant that.
And nobody really had objections or
There's
concerns
no
about
objections
that?
on any side, no.
All right, well, I have had all my questions answered, and so I would suggest we approve the CAO recommendation as amended by Public Safety.
Mr. Chair, it was brought to my attention that in the table in the CAO report for Police Officer 1 on the class score 2214-1, that was inadvertently the trainee level, and you really meant 2214-2?
Correct.
Is that correct?
No, we did notify the clerk in public safety, and they included that in there, or they should have included it in their report.
That's where I got my information as well,
Okay.
to be consistent. And otherwise, if we just approve the report, then there'll be a variance.
The P1s are a training class, so it wouldn't be appropriate to be staffing.
Okay, so we will recommend that with the technical amendment to correct that.
That'll be part of your communication.
Yes. Thank you very much. Let's see what's left. Item number 14.
Item 14, CAO report relative to proposed contract with GovernmentJobs.com, Inc., DBA NeoGov, to provide an applicant tracking and test management systems with optional customization services in an amount not to exceed $981,715,000.
Hello again.
Hi, good afternoon. Leah Chu from the CEO's office and Steve.
Steve Rivera from the Personnel Department.
So what you have before you is that the Personnel Department is requesting for authority to execute a contract for NeoGov, and it's for a cumulative term of 5 years and a maximum compensation ceiling of $981,000. NeoGov has an existing contract with the city, which expired in May of 2018. And so through this contract, NeoGov will continue its services to the city, which includes providing us access to NeoGov's applicant tracking system and test management system. Some examples of the things that they provide for the city includes being able to through their system, we're able to notify interested candidates of upcoming tests. We accept our applications through their system. We can notify applicants of their test dates, their scores, and certification information, and we can administer online tests and also produce reports regarding performance of each test question. It also allows departments to schedule candidates for interviews through the system. And so with that, we'll end our report. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, are there anything that would be provided under this contract, or anything that wouldn't be provided that personnel would still like to see as a function?
I can speak on that a bit. NeoGov does release enhancements on a quarterly basis. Several of these enhancements do benefit the City of Los Angeles and personnel. I can tell you of one big one that they're working on is communicating with our candidates through text messaging. that's something that they're looking at. I think it's something that would be critical for our candidates since that seems to be a major way of them communicating. In addition to that, the anytime, anywhere testing model that the personnel department is looking to launch, NeoGov is imperative of that. So we're consistently looking at that system in terms of delivery and customer service. So to the extent of your question, I would say that there's a few things that we understand are coming and will be available to the city.
So things that you're not getting as functions are in the works or being considered.
Correct. We've been with NeoGov for well over 5 years now, and they've enhanced their system a lot to meet our needs. We had several functional requirements that they had to meet before we went live with them. They met those. They've continued to enhance the system, so we've been very happy with them.
And it seems like a lot of other cities use them. Is that a function of them having a better product, or there are just not that many competitors out there that can do the same thing?
I'd say it's a combination of both. I think their product was very good to begin with. I think since their product has continued to enhance, the competition has lessened because either they've bought them out or the public agencies have decided to go with NeoGov after their contract with other systems have expired.
Okay, well, that's all I have for you. So thank you very much for your presentation, and we will recommend approval of the CAO's recommendation. Thank you. Item number 13.
Item 13, CO report and Board of Public Works report relative to the Nexus study of Public Works Trust Fund account number 4873 and the establishment of Public Works Trust Fund use and guidelines.
Good afternoon. This is Raha Azarmeh from Office of the CAO. In front of you is the Nexus study report. And the Public Works Trust Fund was created by the city in the early 1940s to hold a variety of fee deposits related to public works projects. The Public Works Trust Fund operates similar to the bank or escrow account where funds are held and distributed for a specific purpose or refunded. Deposits are received and tracked individually, spent for intended purpose as authorized, transferred to the general fund, and other funds as reimbursed to work performed by the city. The Public Works Trust Fund currently holds deposits from approximately 12,000 depositors spread across 29 various appropriation accounts totaling $125 million. The Board of Public Works conducted a Nexus study on the special project accounts on the Public Works Trust Fund. The funds in this restricted account have been collected over decades from developers, contractors, and property owners. Some of the deposits in this account represent monies from defaulted bonds and settlements. As of June 30, 2016, this account was valued at approximately $12 million, including 360 deposits. Some of these deposits were decades old, and detailed information about them was not readily available. As a result, the board and the Office of Accounting could not process these deposits any further. The goal of the study was to examine the 360 deposits in this account and to explore options to use the funds. This independent review of the funds would determine the reasonable connection, like nexus between the funds' original purpose and location, and potential use of the funds. Based on the rules and guidelines that was offered by this Nexus study, the Public Works Trust Fund Nexus study determined that almost $5.9 million or 132 deposits were available for the city's immediate use. And the remaining balance of $6 million or 227 deposits was not examined due to timing and resource limitations. Now the board asking for a senior management analyst 1 position to examine the rest of the deposits. And this request has been, this item was considered by the mayor, the CAO, CLA, Budget and Finance, the council, and neither recommended nor approved this request. Now it's in front of you. Per the city attorney, hiring a contractor to complete the study is illegal, and it is considered augmentation of the staff, as is legal to pay for the continuation of services with the Public Works Trust Fund. However, using the one-time revenue to fund ongoing staff costs is against the city financial policy. As a result, we are not convinced that a position is needed at this point. We still recommend that the contractor will be used to examine the remaining $6 million. And we are open, if the board can convince us that there is a further need, then we can discuss it with either next budget year, or we can discuss it further later.
Is there anyone from Public Works here that's... I understand that there will be someone that before the end of the meeting that should be able to give their position on this, so I think we will hold the item for now, but thank you. Let's see. Item number 16.
Item 16, Department of Animal Services report in response to adopted budget recommendation relative to resources necessary to provide dedicated staffing to support the accommodation of pets in homeless shelters, and specifically the Crisis and Bridge Housing Fund program.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. John Forland with the Department of Animal Services, and with me is Karen Nipscher, who is our district supervisor. She's been with the department for 28 years. So we were asked to look at the costs of staffing, supporting for the homeless shelters related to the Crisis and Bridge Housing Fund program. And what we did was just looked at a very short analysis of the hours required, determined that almost closely matched the equivalent staffing of 5 full-time positions, and calculated the costs for those. They would, if this were to go forward, they would be located in the nearest district, the nearest shelter, and staff from there, but that would give us enough additional hours and staffing capacity to staff that operation.
So it looks like the full cost to provide animal services to one homeless shelter would be a little over $400,000.
Well, yes, at the annual rate, the direct cost to the budget would be $307,000, and then the fully burdened, the related cost would be in the second column, and would be the total of both of those. It would be a $740,000 cost to the city.
So it would be both of those combined over $700,000.
Yes.
So that would be $700,000 for one homeless shelter. Presumably, as I understand it, there should be 15, one for each council district. So clearly over a $10 million cost, which is certainly substantial. Do we know that that level of staffing is what would be required?
That's actually the minimum. It was calculated based on 24-hour staffing, and it would be just one person, one officer there each shift, 3 shifts a day. Is that right? Okay.
So it's certainly something that's necessary. At the same time, I'm going to assume that was not part of the budget for this program.
That's correct. We do not have the staffing or budget available, and there's no grant or allocation in our budget for additional staffing.
In fact, that would be, well, it wouldn't match the entire program, but it actually would be pretty close to a match of the entire cost of the whole program. So I'm not sure where we go with this, but that's an important thing for people to know. So I guess we'll note and file the report, but be sure that everyone on council and certainly budget committee is aware that to provide this service, which I think we would like to provide, it's a pretty massive cost.
It is. I would, if I could, might mention one other thing. We also might have some other issues to deal with, is the officer impounding. When we bring an animal in and releasing the animal, we have to, there may be some questions regarding a municipal code or legal questions that would also be, we would need answers for.
And have we looked at the possibility of not doing a 1-for-1, but perhaps housing their animals at one of our animal shelters.
Well, okay, we haven't looked at that. We have a design capacity in our existing shelters.
I mean, it would obviously be preferable to have one at each shelter, and so people could visit their animals more easily, but it also might wind up proving to be so costly that we might have to be able to do something else that fulfills that function in a more affordable way. Okay. So it's definitely a key item to flag for the mayor and council as we move forward with this.
We'll make sure.
But for now, we will note and file this report and then encourage you to communicate that with all the appropriate elective parties as well.
We will do that.
Thank you. Okay. And now back to item number 13. If we could have a representative from Public Works give us the lowdown on why you think a full-time employee is the right way to go for this.
Absolutely. Fernando Campos, Executive Officer, Board of Public Works. My apologies for not being here a little earlier. Something that just came hot off the press is a letter from our President of the Board of Public Works, President Kevin James, that I'm submitted to the clerk for your consideration as you consider this item. We have read the report, the response back from the CAO's office, and we are in disagreement regarding the position. Just to give you a quick background and some historical perspective in regards to the Public Works Trust Fund and why this position is needed, not only long-term, but also it's not temporary in nature in terms of the work that we are requesting that this position to do. About 2 years ago, your council adopted and approved a budget of about $160,000 to actually conduct a survey and also a benchmark study and a review of a special account that we have within the Public Works Trust Fund. The Public Works Trust Fund has about $124 million in that account. We have about 29 different accounts. The Nexus study is only focused on one of the 29 accounts. It has about 360 deposits that add up to about $12 million. We hired a consultant to come in and look at what the special account has in terms of the value in the deposit itself. But more importantly, we hired the consultant to develop a policy for the City Council and the Mayor and the Board of Public Works to consider in terms of what we can do with this money. The monies have been sitting there since about 1985 for about 20 plus years. And the big misconception, I believe, for many years was, can we use this funds? And if we cannot use it, what do we do with the monies? And if we can use it, what do we do? What can we use the monies for? So long story short, 2 years fast forward, we were able to get the Nexus study. We were able to hire a consultant to come back with, does the State of California fee mitigation or the Mitigation Fee Act apply to these funds? The consultant came back and determined that the Mitigation Fee Act does not apply to this portion of the funds that we had in the special account. We are recommending that council utilize about $6 million of the $12 million in the account. We still have more work to do. It only covers about 50% of the initial work that we had anticipated. So a full year's worth of work would run us about $320,000 to $400,000 for the same work. Therefore, the board's desire and intent is that we hire a full-time staff to help us continue the investigation, the determination of whether we can use the additional $6 million that's in the account. In addition to that, we have the other about $100 million that we have to go through the evaluation for all the deposits that we have. In total, there's about 12,500 deposits, and not to go into the details or the weeds, but we do believe that this is going to be at least a good 8 to 10 year effort to go through all the deposits. We will try to accelerate as best as we can, but what we do want to highlight is that the work that we are proposing for this work is not temporary in nature, and that we do need to move forward and hire a full-time staffer. The letter before you that's submitted to the clerk really illustrates on why we need to move forward with a full-time position. First, we do need to focus on improving our governance and our oversight. Having the dedicated full-time staff will not only help us move forward with the reporting, but more importantly, complying with state law. So the State of California Fee Mitigation Act does require us to do annual reports, and it also does require us to do a 5-year plan. The position will help us not only develop that plan, but also prepare that report. So it's really needed to comply with state laws, not only on the special account, but the entire trust fund as a whole. In addition to that, the Board of Public Works oversees about 200 special funds in its entirety. We have several billions of dollars that I oversee. This one position would not only help us with the management of the trust fund, but can be leveraged to manage other funds that we have. Case in point, we're working with all the council districts in terms of petroleum fees that we transfer every year. We transfer about $2.2 million. That fund can be actively managed in terms of what the council offices can use with those monies, and those monies are meant for public works infrastructure. The position not only will help us with governance, but it'll help us with reporting, and then also continue our investigation and our efforts to look at the remaining 12,000 or so accounts that we have in the Public Works Trust Fund. Therefore, we believe that a full-time position is necessary for this type of work. We don't believe that it's temporary. We don't believe that it's short-term in nature. We do believe that this is going to be an ongoing effort. The special accounts also, we receive the monies from projects that are not developed or fully developed from the developers. So when a developer doesn't complete their project, it goes into the special account, then the city is responsible to complete the project. So therefore, it's continuously happening. It's organic. There's always a need for this type of service. Therefore, we think that a full-time position is justified. We also believe that it's not short-term. And even if we were to consider, which at this point we would argue that it should not be contracted out, the cost to contract would be about $300,000 to $400,000 per year, as opposed to one position that runs about $75,000 with the related cost of about $30,000, so about $100,000 for the position. So therefore, for us, it's more cost-effective to move forward as hiring a full-time staffer.
Well, unfortunately, the requirements for contracting don't require that it's the most efficient use of funds, which I've always thought is kind of a bizarre factor, but I think we should move in that direction. It sounds like there's more than enough opportunity to use the person that would be hired at a modest salary. And so I'm going to recommend, at least as a recommendation from the chair of this committee, that we move forward with a recommendation for a full-time position for that.
Thank you very much.
And I thank you both for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe that is the entire agenda. And so we are adjourned.